Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from bitamount.com and P.O. Combs Asian Art in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And today is November 18th, 2020. It's Wednesday, and in this video, as promised, I mentioned a few weeks ago, we're going to do a review of the price results from the London sale that happened just at the beginning of this month, around the 4th and 5th of November. The sales were interesting. They were sort of mixed, though. They had some things that really died, and then they had other things that just went through the ceiling, and it's starting to show some real maturation in the market, how picky the buyers are getting. And we also saw in the London sales sort of a continuation of the trend and interest in very good furniture, Chinese furniture, Ming furniture, and fine, high-quality 18th century furniture. The real test of this is going to come, though, in early December in Hong Kong. And we put the catalogs up today, and we'll be doing a preview video on that next week, hopefully. And if you come over to the bitamount.com site, you scroll down to right about there to the famous black box. Flip it open, free auction catalogs and books. It'll bring you over here, and we posted the catalogs for the upcoming Hong Kong sales. They're always the most recent catalogs are always in the top of the bookcase. This is now exactly at 600 catalogs on here. If you want to come over and do some reading, it's shocking how many we've managed to put up here. But at any rate, there's some great catalogs here, and one of the ones that caught my eye the most is sort of a local interest thing. The Imperial Glories from the Springfield Museum's collection. The Springfield Museum is located here in Massachusetts in the central part of the state. It was started by a man named Smith. He was an absolutely fascinating collector, and there's actually a nice write-up on him in here. If you get over to it, here it is. This is the forward. It was established in 1896 after in a building modeled after an Italian palazzo by George Walter Vincent Smith. That's what the name of the museum was. It was the George Walter Vincent Smith Art Museum. He was an eclectic collector. He had lots of money, and they have a bit about his financial history. He manufactured carriages and ran factories, and he just became enamored of antiques and art of all kinds. But he was particularly interested in Middle Eastern and Far Eastern art in many ways, more than anything else. And he built an astounding collection, and they're selling off just a few pieces from it as part of a fundraising fund drive they're doing. And they're selling off some really great imperial pieces of cloisonne and jades only. There's about, I don't know how many lots there are in this sale. I think it's around 20 or so. Look at the bronzes. God, they're great. Let me see here. Lot 912. So there's a dozen lots or so in here. It's not a huge sale, but it's beautifully cataloged, and they actually show the cases in the museum. I've been to this museum. It's a nifty, old-fashioned museum built in his old house. It's worth going to if you're ever in Massachusetts. It really is. It's a great collection, and interesting things. Just the stuff that you can really get a sense of what collectors were interested in the 1880s, 90s, and so on. When he built the museum, and there's a good story about the building of the museum as well. It's not huge, but it's a good museum. They have nice things, nice people. All right, so you want to check that out. Now, and we'll cover all that in the next video. Now, let's hop over here. We're going to cover mostly the two auctioneers we're going to cover the most in this video. We're going to be Bonhams and Sothebys. Christie's had a small sale. The results were good, but they were sort of repetitions of what happened at Sotheby's, and because of length of video here, you know how I can go on. I thought we'd keep it down to this so it would make it a little more reasonable viewing times, but just some great things. And the first lot that I want to mention that was in the sale was this. It was that beautiful pair of Chinese Kongs. Here they are, Guangxu, mark and period, but just a splendid pair. Beautifully even, just they match each other so well. The trigrams were beautifully done, good spacing, nice and deep, good thick glaze. And the collectors really liked this. The estimate was pretty reasonable. It was 15,000 to 20,000 pounds, which I thought seemed pretty reasonable because we've had these before, and just you get $15,000 or so just for one pretty easily. Any rate, the pair got a lot of excitement, as pairs often do, and they sold for 37,000 pounds, or roughly 49,000 and almost 50,000 US by the time you're done. $49,800, something like that. Just an absolutely splendid pair of Guangxu vases. And again, the market really loved them. And then we're going to hop over to this. This was sort of an interesting thing. It was sort of a quiet little lot down here in the corner. We talked about it in the preview, and I thought the estimate seemed awfully reasonable. And this was when I said to everybody, if you can put a bid on this and get it anywhere close to that, it's an absolute steal. It's a wonderful thing. And it's a early Kangxi or late Shunzi period, transitional, that kind of thing. But just very unusual, beautifully decorated, and a nice form. It was around 14 inches high. It was a good size. Had some real heft to it. There wasn't a little 6 or 8 inch, sort of tea caddy size thing. This was vase size. It was nice and big. And in the end, this got a lot of interest. It sold for 26,000 pounds, more than 10 times its high estimate, or roughly $34,900. Call it $35,000 for that wonderful little vase. But unusual, and if you think about it, you're going to look around a long time before you see another one just like it. But the big shock of the day, the big shock of the sale, was what comes up here on page 46, lot number 37, was this Yongshen Famille Rose butterfly dish. A very rare dish. I'm pretty sure we talked about it in the preview. I know we talked about one of them. Just incredibly rare type, done during the high point of the Yongshen to early Qinlong, late Yongshen period, when the great kiln masters were there. And it was just beautiful. Just a beautiful, beautiful example. It was about 7 inches in diameter, and it had, I thought, a very reasonable estimate, 3,000 to 5,000 pounds. Wow, that's a good deal. Well, everybody thought it was a good deal. It ended up selling for 212,000 pounds, or roughly $292,000 US. Evidently, a lot of people went and looked it up. It came also from this Robert Hope Smith collection, who was this a very well-known Brit who had been buying ceramics with his wife since the 1940s. He was a member of the ceramic societies. He was sort of an ever-present figure, very low-key collector, but everybody knew him, and he was very well liked. And this was just one of the pieces from his collection. That square vase we just saw also came from his collection. And all of his collection did really well because, again, we're seeing these auctions where things out of old collections just drive everybody wild. They just have to have them. And this is one of the examples. This was the biggest shock, I think, of all the Bonham sales. And then over here, this beautiful pair of Ming blue and white jars that we talked about. I remember talking about these because I liked them so much, with a 2,000 to 3,000 pound euro, a 2,000 to 3,000 pound estimate. They were nice size, about 14 3/4 inches, just a little under 15 inches tall, which is just about right for these late Ming jars. There are a lot of them in that 15-inch range, sort of rounded, nice. But it was a pair, and they were big and gutsy and good looking. And I guess everybody liked them because they ended up selling for well over their estimate. They sold for 13,000 pounds, or 18,300 or so dollars. But they were just beautiful and nice and big, and I think in general these big late Ming jars are grossly underappreciated. I like them a lot, and they're fairly rare, but they do turn up. There's some of them coming up, I believe, over in the Hong Kong sales. And I love them, and I'm kind of surprised more people don't collect them because you can pick them up reasonably here and there. But for their size and their age and the quality of the decoration, I think they represent a great buy for someone who wants something beautiful in their house. You can put flowers on them. You can put stuff in them. You can fill them with, in the spring, fill them with chrysanthemums or roses or something. God, they look great. Imagine a pair of those. Yikes. All right, anyway. I think that was a perfectly fair price. I thought the estimate was crazy low. I wondered almost if maybe they weren't badly damaged or something with that kind of estimate. And then we could hop over here to something that brought a lot of money just for fun. It was this beautiful, beautiful pair of Yongshen 6-character marked dragon jars. These were not enormous. These were only about 7 inches tall, but an incredibly rare type. Beautifully enameled, crisp white bodies, beautifully done dragons. The dragons are great. They sort of are extended into the clouds and the lightning and all this business. And these very heavily detailed 4-clawed dragons, not the 5, not the 3, 4 claws. And beautifully done in this wonderful, very animated wave pattern down at the bottom. on this. And these were estimated, they had a good estimate on them. They were estimated 120 to 150,000 pounds. And lo and behold, they did a little better than that. They ended up selling for 312,000 pounds, over double their high estimate, or $415,000 US. All right, but they were beautiful. They were beautiful, small, elegant things. And again, the market, when the right thing comes along, they're very, very excited about it. And this came from the Alfred, was this the Spielman and Company? Yeah, these were the ones that Spielman and Company had sold back in the 1960s. They were a legendary London auction house, sort of like Spinks. They handled great stuff, and they had these. And they probably sold back then for probably a couple of $1,000s, I bet. But at any rate, that was then, and this is now. And now we're going to hop along over to the brush pot. I just like this brush pot a great deal. I thought it was beautifully done. Late Ming, early Qing Dynasty, 17th, 18th century. They had them sort of, they weren't really sure exactly when they were made, but very fine quality. And they had a very reasonable estimate, 3,000 to 5,000 pounds for that nice old piece of bamboo. The carving on them was really lovely and very much in the style of that period. There's a better shot of it. The ladies seated, one on a bench. It's very three-dimensional, very clever carving, with as I said, a 3,000 to 5,000 pound estimate. And in the end, it ended up selling for a good bit over that, 27,000 pounds, or what does that work out to? About $36,000 US. But again, scholars' objects, and this one of the sales coming up in Hong Kong is all scholars' objects, and we're going to go through it because they actually call it a scholars' sale, and very, very nice. All right, and this little Kieran that I like so much ended up selling. I'm doing it from memory. I didn't write it down. I just like that little bone, that little horn carving of a Quillen. I think it sold for about the high estimate, somewhere in there, $2,000 or $3,000, 2,000 or 3,000 pounds, somewhere in there. So somebody got a nice buy. I hope one of you guys bought that. I just love that. I like those little carvings a great deal. Interesting, very, very personal. And then we're going to slip over here to page 108 in your catalog. Let's see here. Oh, the painting, yes. This was that wonderful 18th century painting of the two women playing chess, and it came out of this long-time collection, Yongshen to Qianlong period. They don't know exactly when it was done, but it was based on an original painting of the Beauties, the 12 Beauties, and was converted, and here's a picture of the previous owner. Here it is sitting on the wall of his house. It had been bought by a collector in Shanghai in the 1930s. Just a wonderful thing, and they're sitting playing Go or Chinese chess as they call it. There it is, not Chinese checkers, Chinese chess. And here's the Go board, and it showed them. And remember that we had these counters, these little not counters, but jars to hold the pieces. And in the painting were pointed out because right after it, there was a very, very lovely lacquer example of this form that was sold. And there was also a pair of Wanli examples that were sold at another auction that we're going to cover of these rare pieces. That a long time people didn't know what they were. People that collect and deal and stuff know what they are, but for a long time people would see them and they weren't sure what they were for. They thought maybe they were to put spices in a kitchen. And that's what these little covered jars were for. And this was just a stupendously attractive painting, no matter how you look at it. And it ended up going well above its high estimate, and it sold for 125,000 pounds, or roughly $166,000 US. And the estimate on it was well below that, 60 to 80,000 pounds. So it went about 50% above its high estimate. Not a surprise, though. It's a really rare painting. Really, really is. And then we're going to hop along over to here to the lovely little pair of lacquer boxes. These were terrific, and they were estimated at let's see here, 80 to 120,000 pounds. These are small now. Keep this in mind. These are pretty small. They're 4 inches tall. The pair ended up selling for $199,000 US, or about 150,000 pounds. but very, very rare. And as I said, there's a pair of Wanli ones coming up that we saw. They didn't bring quite as much as this, but they did really well. And just another sign of the strength of the market. And now the last thing we're going to look at in the Bonham sale is, let's see here. No. Where did it go? Oh, that was it for the Bonhams catalog. Okay, never mind. All right. Now, let's head over here to the Imperial Art Sale. This was the Imperial Porcelain Collection sale that Sotheby's had. And it was some really great things, but apparently the market felt some of the items were overestimated and there wasn't a lot of interest in them. They didn't do well. But other things did great, like this double-gored, loop-handled, Qinglong Marken period celadon vase. Ended up for going for over three times its high estimate. It was estimated at 80 to 120,000 pounds. Ended up selling for 352,000 pounds. But it was a lovely example, beautifully done. There's not much not to like about that because of the color. The color of the celadon on this was just exceptional. It's that beautiful, beautiful green that the Japanese collectors all love so much, and just very, very high demand. But absolutely even, pure, smooth, and lovely. Just a great example. And it has ended up selling, as I said, for 382,000 pounds. And then we're going to mosey along over to, let's see here, what else was on this page? And then you'll see on the right side these blank spaces. These are the things that didn't sell. There were a number of lots that didn't get off the ground for some reason. One of the things that did do very well was this very beautiful Qinglong incised flask. And this, flasks come in all sizes. This is a pretty small flask. It's only about 7 inches tall, I think, isn't it? These are little. 6 inches tall, smaller than I thought. Ended up selling for 450,000 pounds, which is a big number. That's about $600,000 or so dollars US against an 80 to 120,000 pound estimate. But if you pull in the image, take the time to come and look at this and just absorb the color, the range of color, the brilliance of color that the potter was able to put onto this piece when they glazed it is just amazing. It's just amazing, going from that luscious red in the center, like rubies, almost strawberry red, like they talk about with Kangxi pieces, crushed strawberries in sections. It looks like that, and then it goes out to this flaming blue, to very, very light blue, draining down the sides and down the face of the vase, and then bang, it ends right above the foot, nice and even, perfectly potted. Really lovely example, and sold for a fantastic amount of money. But the color of this, the shape, it was Marken period, had an incised seal mark on the bottom of Qinglong, just a really, really rare bird. But beautifully, beautifully done. And that was, I think, about the highest priced thing in this sale. A lot of the things did okay. You had this nice Yongshen Marken period dragon jar that sold for 226,000 pounds against a high estimate of 200,000. And you had a few other things. Okay, this brought more. The Yongshen Marken period cluster vase, or conjoining vases they call them, sold for 583,000 pounds. And above its high estimate, well above, almost doubled its high estimate. That's right. This was great. These do not turn up often. Fakes of these turn up all the time. Okay, through the inquiry program, I think we've seen 5 or 6 of them in the last year. These turn up in auctions all over the world in the form of copies. You want to be extremely careful if you encounter one of these, because they are interesting, they are beautiful, they're extremely rare, and they're heavily copied. All right, this is a real one. That's a real one. Beautiful even glaze, perfectly potted, and very complicated to make, obviously, because you've got 6 vases here all tied in together and then glazed together and so forth. Very, very unusual, and brought a high price, $583,000 or around $700,000. It was Marken period, and that's what they bring. All right, now let's mosey on over to this. This was that double gourd. We already covered that. And now over here to the Sotheby's sort of fine art sale. This was something I talked about because I love Chinese ironwork, Chinese Ming ironwork. They didn't make a lot of it, and I think it's one of those things that's just ridiculously undervalued in the market today compared to bronze, which they made a lot of bronzes. They didn't make a lot of iron, and for some reason, collectors haven't really latched on to these great pieces of Ming ironwork. And this was a beautiful Buddha head. It was estimated at 6,000 to 8,000 pounds. I thought that was a bargain price. 14 inches tall. 14 inches tall. Wonderfully done. Wonderfully done. Beautiful details all the way down. And I think these are just crazily underappreciated in the market. Absolutely crazy. This was a great example. Beautiful, beautiful piece. And in the end, it sold for 9,000 pounds. I think that is a tremendous bang for your buck, as they say in the business world, to have a piece like that, of that quality, age, and rarity. And again, it may be one of those things that's sort of like how the Ming furniture was for a long time. It was always popular, but Ming furniture all of a sudden has sort of exploded upward. There were some very good early collectors of it. I've known a few of them. And back in the day, they spent money, but they never spent the kind of money that the pieces are bringing today. And I think that certain types of ironworks in China, especially these Ming pieces, are eventually going to be in the same high area of interest. The way Sung pieces have gone up so much over the years. For a while, it was all about Marken period famille rose and Qing pieces and Ming pieces, and now all of a sudden Sung and earlier pieces are coming back into favor. Tang pieces haven't yet, but who knows? All right, and then over here to this was that great brush pot that had the crazy low estimate of 8 to 1,200 pounds. And I thought, boy, for a Z10 brush pot of this quality, stupendously well carved, beautiful detail and in beautiful condition, nice surface on it, nice patina, nice surface, and deep. You can look right into it. You can see these holes up here, and you can look right into the piece. Just a beautiful example. And sold for 7,560 pounds. It went way over its estimate. It went for 5-6 times its estimate. That's close to $10,000. And I don't think that's a crazy price. I think this is a great thing, just because of the sheer quality of it. And a lot of collectors of brush pots like the plain, simple ones, or very lightly carved, or the shallow relief carving. And this is an entirely different style, beautifully done. They think it was probably late Qing, 19th century, but exceptional quality, just exceptional quality. Had sort of Qinlong quality in the carving to it, that style of the dragon. Beautiful. And then over here to this was that dandy little Tang Dynasty fish lamp that we talked about. I just thought this was a charming little object. It was reasonably estimated 8 to 12,000 pounds. And lo and behold, it sold for 10,000 pounds all in. There you go. I like that. I think that's just a nice object. I like the spinach and egg glaze on it, or the sort of amber and green glaze. They call it spinach and egg mostly for Kangxi pieces. But anyway, nice thing. And the fish was nicely detailed, adorable little thing. Only about 4 inches tall, long as I recall, 5 inches in length rather. Very small, but again, one of those nice personal objects and beautifully done. And then over here to this, the Jiajing Marken period dragon jar. These are, as many of you know, those of you that have been collecting for a while, these are faked to death for Qinlong examples, Jiaqing examples, and Daoguan examples. They fake them constantly, and they were faking them, even in the Republic period, they did some of them, but most of the fakes that they did were not copies done during the Republic period. They call them Republic period, but they're not. They're brand new. And about 10 years ago, a flood of these hit the market in various configurations, and a number of them got through. A number of them were pretty convincing. But this is a good one, very nice looking. Had a 20 to 30,000 pound estimate. Jiaqing Marken period ended up selling for 78,000 pounds, or around $90,000, $95,000 US. That's what a real one sells for. But if you see one, you see these turning up in auctions online, live auctioneers and all that, stay away from them unless it's a major auction house and you trust that they're able to date them, because they are tricky to date. They are very tricky to date, even for people that have studied them. All right, and on here's that other set of the chess piece counters, or the chess piece boxes that we talked about. This was a beautiful, beautiful pair. I talked about these in the preview video because I thought they were just so darn great, and the estimate was ridiculously low, as I mentioned. I just thought these were wonderful. Beautiful color. The carver did a stupendous job of using the grain of the wood, the natural grain of the wood, which you can see all through here, sort of decorating the outside of the box once it was done and oiled and polished down. And these, again, were for holding chess pieces. And it had a 1,500 to 2,500 pound estimate. And I thought, wow, you can buy it for that. That's a good thing. I ended up selling for 50,000 pounds. Sorry, guys. Or you know, $65,000 US. But incredibly rare. And again, you're getting back to that furniture and furnishings aspect, which seems to be getting an awful lot of interest from people out there. And these I just thought were just great. They were great. Just underestimated. And then over here to this was that very, very lovely little Daoguan market period, another one of these insect dishes. Not too dissimilar from the Yongshen example that was over at Bonhams. But I thought this was a great little dish, and we talked about it, and I thought, well, if you can get it for that price range, it's a good buy. Well, nobody got it from that price range. It went for twice its high estimate. It did just fine, but very, very delicately done. Very fine quality shading in the famille rose, in the flowers here, like right in here. Beautifully shaded, very nicely outlined where the leaves were outlined. In many areas, the stems were. But what was interesting here, the leaves really weren't fully outlined. They were just sort of traced in and then colored. Very complicated decoration on here. And you have these little bees coming in from the top. Nice thing. 12,600 pounds. And then pop over here to this. This was the underglaze, the puce enameled and underglaze blue Immortal Guangxu bowl. Very nice one, very detailed. Had some really good definition. I like the brush strokes on this. I like the facial expression of the Liuhan with the holding up the peach, and the other Immortal with the jar with the mist coming out of it, replicating himself. See over here, he's riding the elephant, and here he is. In this one, it looks like he's riding a dragon. When it comes out of his dream. But at any rate, it was estimated at just 1,500 to 2,500 pounds, and bam, it took off and sold for almost 7,000 pounds, 6,930 pounds, or around $8,500. But again, it seemed like a low estimate, and you got to take a shot at it because you never know. But that shows you, how they can sometimes be a little off on estimates. I think Bonhams and Sothebys both, and some of these catalogs, have made a concerted effort to keep the estimates reasonable to encourage competition. But when they do that, there's always the chance that it actually goes for that, and then you're in good shape. All right, and then over here to this, the rock crystal vase, late Qing Dynasty. Beautiful quality with the phoenix and the chimeras climbing up the jar. Just a lovely example. God, look at the carving in that, all in rock crystal. But it's a very high grade of rock crystal, not a lot of inclusions on it, very much like a fine, thick glass, but beautifully carved and then polished to pieces. These took forever to make. These were not done quickly. And it was estimated at just 1,500 to 2,500 pounds, and it went out for 5,200 pounds. And I don't think that's an unreasonable price. I mentioned these others in the video a couple of weeks ago just because I thought the estimates were so reasonable. All right, and some of the pieces went sort of in the range, and others didn't. This was another thing that I thought was crazy underestimated, and I said so. It was estimated at 3,000 to 5,000 pounds. It is another one of these Guangxu market period vases, not a pair, but a very nice example. And it ended up selling for 21,420 pounds, or about $26,000 or $7,000 US. Which is right in there, because I had mentioned that these seem to routinely sell in the $18,000 to $25,000 range anyway. And here's another example of one. And they do copy these, so you want to be careful. Not all of them are authentic, as always with Chinese stuff, but this was a beautiful, beautiful vase, and nicely done all the way around. Nice glaze up and down the piece, very thick around the base of the neck here. Love the way it pools up inside the shoulder and then runs thin down that seam down the side of the body of the vase. Beautiful example. And then we'll slip over here. We've seen that one, and we've seen that one, and we have not seen that one. This was the other thing that did awfully well. Yongshen market period floral bowl, famille rose. They just call it a floral bowl, but probably done during the period when Tang was there. Very elegant, very simple, beautifully done, creamy, milky white glaze, a nice, strong, high foot, and just perfectly potted. This thing was a masterpiece just in its potting. And it had a 15 to 20,000 pound estimate, and in the end, it blew it away. It went up to 88,000 pounds, or just about $100,000 for that bowl. But very lovely pattern, not a common pattern either, which made the estimate seem a little bit puzzling. But again, milky white, white glaze over the body, beautifully detailed, subtle, elegant, and sort of minimalist, not eating up every inch of real estate with a lot of decoration. Here's a good shot of the bottom of it. And I urge everybody to use these images whenever they can to come over and get a good look at how the bottoms of one of these things should look, and pay especially close attention to the color of the paste, where it's where you can see it on here. This one is partially glazed, but the foot has been polished down, so it looks like it's almost got glaze on it. There you see the raw paste right there, and that's what it should look like. Very smooth. And then you have, of course, the Yongshen mark and so forth. And some people will look at that mark and think, well, it looks like a 19th century mark. No, that's an 18th century Yongshen mark. There are only a few people that applied these marks at the Imperial Kiln, and this is stylistically right in there with known works from there. Beautiful, beautiful example. All right, and that was it. That was all of the sales. In general, they did pretty well. As I said, there were some holes as far as interest goes. I think that's part of the further maturation of the Asian art market. And as I said, I think we're seeing new openings, new areas of interest growing, especially in the furniture and furnishings and scholars' objects, things that you can more away from fluffy porcelains a bit, and into other arts. Which also include, I think you're going to see some growing interest in late Ming and early Qing paintings, which have always done okay, but they haven't certainly done as well as the 20th century modern painters have done generally. But I think you're going to see a growing interest in it because of the aesthetic, and we'll see. All right, and that's it. I'll be back on Friday with our regular video. Have a good rest of your week, and thanks for watching, and I'm glad we got this done. Okay, bye-bye.